Welcome to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed.
Where wellness gets a fun twist. I'm Gordy Jenkins, a natural foods entrepreneur, and with me is Dr. Zed DeBout, our resident trained Stanford MD. We are former college swim teammates turned best friends, and now your guide to this crazy world of health trends and fitness hacks with a focus on getting the science right. Get ready for a wild ride. This is Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Today, much like our bodies, Zed and I are digesting microplastics. What are they? Where are they? And damn it, can these menaces be stopped? Next, we share a historical perspective about the explosive early days of plastic before we wrap up, as always, with the fast fire questions. But before we dive into the multicolored McDonald's ball pit that is our guts, surprisingly with less fecal matter than the actual ball pits, Zed, what have you learned while going through health this week?
Gordy. So I have a little article from a publication I like to call the New York Times. Mm-hmm. They also call it the New York Times. It is the New York Times. And it's called Time to Say Goodbye to the BMI.
Time to say goodbye. Like
exactly. That? To the BMI. Yeah,
to the
exactly
BMI.
like that. So just to give a quick summary, we're all familiar with the BMI, body mass index, a health metric we know and love and like to share with everyone we meet along with our names. So
that's right.
It's faced plenty of criticism for its inability to account for things like differences in muscle mass, fat distribution, and even demographic diversity. But there's a new shapely metric on the block, and it's called the Body Roundness Index, BRI, or I guess
the
BRI.
The BRI. So that's the new thing?
And you're not going to believe what it measures, but it measures
what does it measure?
body roundness.
But all right, but believable.
But it takes into account both height and waist circumference, and it's been proposed as a replacement because research shows is a more accurate predictor of health risks associated with things like central obesity and abdominal fat. So studies suggest that those things make it a better indicator for mortality risk associated with conditions like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. So stuff like that. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Do you know if it factors in muscle? I feel like that's the thing about BMIs that have always, put me in the overweight category, no matter what phase of, as a college swimmer and stuff. Does this thing count for muscle, or is it just kind of more like weighted, so to speak, focusing on an area that is more of a prognosticator for your general health?
Yeah, the way the calculation works, it kind of does work in that muscle component because you can be really muscular and fit, and while that muscle is dense and so could contribute to a higher or a larger BMI measure, with the BRI, if you're fit, you're still going to have a fairly lean body frame and you're still going to have a lean waist. And so you won't have that abdominal fat, that sort of fat tire sitting around your waist. So it won't count that. It won't count the muscle density towards that measurement, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. I don't know. Yeah. What do you do? So you look at yourself and you're like, how round am I?
Basically. So it kind of gets at this idea of variations in fat distribution and being better for that measurement. So there's so I guess like being a fat ass, not so good for health, but having a fat ass potentially less problematic. So that gets at fat distribution.
Hey, that is some science that I love to hear, Zed. I'm already in a good mood today. I'm excited about this recording. And I like a booty. So Love it. If that's the point of what you're trying to say, love it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what these researchers in the JAMA network are trying to say. So they found that higher BRI scores, the BRI score, correlates with increased mortality risks from cancer, heart disease, and other illnesses. So interestingly, both high and very low BRI scores are associated with elevated mortality risks. And you can think of the low one as being problematic just because maybe you're emaciated or have no muscle tissue, which can also be a risk for falls and other potential mortality issues.
Right. Like when you look like a French bulldog standing up, kind of.
A broken hourglass or something. That risky hourglass figure.
Interesting though. I like it. I like the BRI. Have you calculated your BRI score yet?
So I was actually looking around for any kind of measuring tape yesterday because I wanted to have mine on hand, but lo and behold, I'm all out of measuring tape. So I'm gonna
All
find
right.
one we can share on a future one so we can calculate ours. But I want to give
Okay.
credit where credit is due. So it's developed by mathematician Diana Thomas. And so again, it considers the body's shape more accurately than the BMI, reflecting variations in body roundness and fat distribution. So a little quote from the article. While BMI is grounded in the geometry of a cylinder, Dr. Thomas said she was looking in the mirror one day and thought to herself, quote, I'm not a cylinder. I'm kind of more an egg. I have hips that make me more like an egg. How do I capture that? End quote. So,
And then
Gordy,
what?
how would
Then
you
what?
capture that?
All the king's men came and put her back together again.
Yeah. What kind of object would you say that you look like? It doesn't have to be a food.
I would say I look like a wooden stake. Maybe one that you would use on a very windy day to hold a circus tent down or something.
Nice, yeah.
What about you?
Sorry, we don't have any more time for questions. All right, so to calculate this, so BRI is calculated as 364.2 minus 365.5 times the square root of 1 minus the waist circumference in centimeters divided by 2 pi squared over 0.5 times the height in centimeters squared. So I know that's a lot, and you don't want to forget your PEMDAS and your orders of operations there, but there are BRI calculators online where you can basically just plug in your waist and hip circumference, and voila, you can decide how much of an egg you are.
All right. I appreciate that. Pretty cool, Zed. Pretty cool. I will actually try that, and I will let you know what kind of egg I am.
More egg or plastic ball from the ball pit.
Oh, that is a good segue, Zed. Would you like to let people know what we're doing today and how we're gonna share with them the subject?
Sure. So the subject today, I'll let Gordy cover the subject, but as always, we're sort of breaking the information, organizing it based on the SOAP note. So again, SOAP stands for Subjective, Objective, Assessment, and Plan. So Gordy, what is our subjective today?
Well, thank you so much for asking. Subjective. Well, our subject today, Zed, is microplastics. So I'll give you a little context here, all right? In the aftermath of World War II, a seismic shift in consumer habits began to unfold, one that would lead to our current plastic crisis. As the war ended, manufacturers had excess capacity from producing steel and aluminum for military needs, which they then redirected towards civilian products. And this pivot gave rise to the era of single-use packaging and eventually single-use plastics.
No, it's quite the trade-off. Like more plastics, less weapons, but yeah, which is better?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're living in the consequences now. Either way, right?
We have tons of both. The
Yes.
perfect world.
Right. Perfect balance. Before the war, everyday items like beverage bottles were reused. Glass bottles, for example, would be returned and refilled multiple times. But with the introduction of disposable aluminum cans and later plastic bottles, this practice began to fade. Goodbye, never forget me. Cans, unlike glass bottles, couldn't be reused because once they opened, they couldn't be sealed again. So marketers capitalized on this change by convincing consumers that disposable was better. Ads from the 1950s to the 1970s touted the convenience and low cost of throwing away items instead of returning them. The tyranny of convenience, as historian Robert Friedel puts it, made disposable products seem like a hassle-free choice.
Ugh, that is such a bummer. Like, obviously, shame on us, but also shame on all the freaking marketers. It's such a kind of poisonous, pervasive, ubiquitous thing in society where nothing is ever enough. There has to be something wrong to convince you to buy something. And so,
Right.
yeah, such a cool, nice little nasty thing that has led to just this pervasive preponderance of plastic.
Right. Oh, love that alliterative little wording right there. But yeah, that idea of that tyranny of convenience and this convenience paradox, which refers to the idea that in the pursuit of convenience and the pursuit of convenience itself, which is meant to make life easier, can often lead to long-term complications, inefficiencies, or unintended negative consequences. So while convenience provides short-term benefits, such as saving time or reducing effort, it can create long-term problems like over-reliance on disposable products, environmental harm, or reduced skill sets in the population. So you also see this with things like fast food, which, like in theory, we're supposed to save people time, but now are contributing to poor health outcomes that will probably take time away from you eventually.
Live fast, die young. That's what I always say.
That's what you always say. I'm glad you haven't said it yet. As plastic manufacturing surged, so did the promotion of single-use items. Advertisements pushed the idea that plastic was cheaper and easier to discard, promoting a culture of disposability. This shift also led to the decline of quality of products made for reuse, like glass bottles, which were then made more thinner to become disposable. More thinner. By the late 1970s, the concept of reuse had largely vanished in the United States, replaced by a throwaway mentality. Recycling, introduced in the 1980s, was seen as a solution, but is often less environmentally friendly than reusing due to the energy required for collection and processing. Today, we're grappling with the consequences. Nearly 1 million plastic bottles are bought every minute,
Jesus.
and the demand for new plastics continues to rise. Isn't that crazy? While some companies are working to revive, refill, and reuse systems, a radical shift in consumer habits and business practices is necessary. As we confront this plastic deluge, remember that reversing our plastic dependency isn't just about recycling more, it's about reducing the production of new plastic and re-embracing reuse. The path forward involves both innovative solutions and a return to old practices that value sustainability over convenience.
Bravo. Couldn't have said it better. And I just want to say, so if you're already getting a little depressed and you're shutting down and being like, man, what am I supposed to do? Convenience, blah, blah, blah. I'm just one person. I can't do. Shut the fuck up. It's gonna be okay. We have lots of actionable stuff moving forward. So hang in there, buckle up.
And you're not just one person. If you're a listener, you're one of dozens. Literally dozens.
There are dozens of you.
Dozens of you that could make a difference. So we appreciate that. But so Zed, that was the subjective. Will you now hit me with the objective? Will you objectify me, Captain?
I sure will, you giant steak. you what was it? A steak in a tent? Is that it?
I don't know. Now you make me sound like a piece of meat.
Yeah, you big ass steak.
You juicy filet mignon.
Juicy T-bone. All right.
With the truffle butter.
All right. So objective. All right. Microplastics. Plastic particles smaller than 5 millimeters in size.
So, how mature of us. Look at that. That's silent. We'll just,
nice.
Let's move on. We'll shake hands there. I'd say 5 millimeters inside. Both of us know. We both knew it. We both aren't taking that. Yeah. Cool. Truce.
All right.
Continue.
Plastic particles smaller than 5 millimeters in size. So they often result from the breakdown of larger plastic debris, which you can imagine, or even they're manufactured off the bat as extremely small particles. So, for example, the microbeads in cosmetics. And you thought microplastics were small. How about a little something called nanoplastics? So you're not going to believe this, but they're even smaller plastic particles, typically less than 100 nanometers in size.
All right. Truce. All right. I respect that, man. I respect that. Hey, little fun fact, though, I do have for you. A sheet of paper is about 100,000 nanometers thick. So that's how, think about 100 nanometers. That's 1,000 times smaller than the thickness of a piece of paper. A strand of human DNA is 2.5 nanometers in diameter. Jeez. And this is my favorite nanometer fact, and I have three of them. 1 nanometer is how long your fingernail grows every second.
Wow. Well, maybe your fingernail.
I'm coming for you.
Don't point your finger at me.
It's going to Hawaii.
All right. So that's nanoplastics. Oh, isn't that the brand of condom you use?
Oh, there it is. Thought you could do it.
No. All right. Enough. All right. Back to the truce. So again, like microplastics, nanoplastics, they can result from further degradation of microplastics, or they can actually be engineered as well for specific applications. So you may have heard of nanofibers or nanobots, similarly nanoplastics. So sources and prevalence, environmental ubiquity is the key here. So they're pervasive in the environment. They're found in oceans, freshwater bodies, saltwater bodies, soil, air, the air we breathe. So kind of like love, plastic
Oh,
actually is all around us.
oh, Love Actually, nice.
So they enter ecosystems through various routes, including plastic waste degradation and industrial processes, as well as those consumer products we love so much. And so, in terms of human exposure, luckily, this is not just an environmental issue or a problem for wildlife. So, if you're a selfish piece of shit and you only care about yourself, I have some good news for you,
Oh.
because the environment is your environment, and these plastics directly affect you. You are the sea turtle. So
I am the sea turtle.
you are the walrus. But
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
so both these types of plastic particles, nano and microplastics, they can enter the body through the respiratory system via inhalation, the digestive system through consumption of both
Breathing and
contaminated food.
eating. To translate that, if you didn't go to Stanford.
Nice. Or penetration through the skin via cosmetics, and also this one's a little spooky, contact with clothing. So if you wear those nice athleisure, or it doesn't have to just be athleisure, but so many
Or
of
nice.
or nice. So many of our fibers are plastic based. So those can just sneak right through your skin. So a little bit of the sour side of Lululemon.
All right. Yeah, very. That leaves a sour taste in my mouth, Zed.
So I have another fun little finding for you. Plastics have been discovered in nearly every human tissue, and I'm not just talking boobs and butts and other implants. So this includes the lungs, placenta, testicles, semen, carotid plaques or carotid plaques, liver, the blood, and many others.
So
How does that make you feel?
it feels off. So how am I? It doesn't feel good knowing that my placenta is swimming with microplastics.
Or your carotid plaques.
I feel like I'm just learning a lot about my body today.
And that's all you could ask for from this podcast. But no, so really we are just Barbie girls living in a Barbie world, you could say.
You could.
So you might be asking, all this plastic everywhere inside us, is it a good thing? It turns out it's probably not. So toxicity, firstly. So there's chemical leaching phenomenon. So plastics can leach harmful chemicals. So we
chemical leaching, just a chemical
best.
leach. The worst two words you could put together.
leaching and chemicals.
Yeah, awesome.
They gotta get a new marketer on that. Make it a little more desirable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've talked a little bit about
Chemical
EPAs.
tickling or something.
There you go.
Chemical tickling.
Yeah, I was gonna say nectar, but that kind of grosses me out. Nectar tickling. We'll workshop it.
We'll think about it.
We'll get back to the big plastic with our pitch. But no, so leaching these chemicals, you got your BPA, your phthalates, heavy metals, all three of the three horsemen or whatever. And then so those are all known endocrine disruptors and can cause various health issues. So, and then interestingly, there's also the adsorption, never to be confused with absorption of pollutants. So both types of plastics can act like these little sponges for environmental pollutants. So you got your polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH, PA, and then persistent organic pollutants, POPs, which sound pretty fun.
Those
which
sound really fun.
So those can be released into the human body in both ingestion and inhalation. So the adsorption of pollutants.
So these pops and paws sound fun. You're trying to say that these are not good things?
Yeah, again, their marketing is all messed up. All right, I'm going to pitch you. How about reactive insipid pollutants, RIPs? I feel like that would be a better kind of more
rips.
intuitive. Yeah.
I'll go rip over pop every day.
Y'all got any of those paws and pops? Yeah, it just sounds paternal and kind of comforting.
Sounds like you have two grandparents or two grandpas.
You should be so lucky.
Yeah, we all should.
Bless. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
All right, so those are some of the chemical interactions. Bonus, there's also physical interactions. So cellular uptake, due to the very small size, which we've kind of hit you over the head with. So the plastics can actually penetrate biological membranes, not just the outer cell layers, but also the inner cell, like your organelle, your mitochondrial membranes, and those can lead to cellular and tissue damage, and as well as inflammation and oxidative stress. So again, to kind of piggyback off of your parallels for the the micro, like the strand of DNA and the how long your fingernails growing. So the average human skin cell is about 30 micrometers in diameter, or micrometers, however you want to pronounce it. So that's the average skin cell diameter. Nanoplastic particles compared to the skin cell are on that scale 10 centimeters compared to a 100-meter football field. So you can imagine how much space there is between these skin cells for the plastic from your like microfiber leggings or whatever to just kind of cruise on in and make itself at home.
Did you guys play on a 100-meter football field in Oregon?
Yeah, I was like, damn, that's probably more of a European football field. Soccer for
Fair enough. Interesting, though.
So, and not just does it, once it gets in you, it's not just, what is kind of just chilling because there's bioaccumulation. So all these particles can accumulate in the organs and tissues and raise concerns about long-term exposure and chronic health effects. So they can kind of build up. And another fun little addition. So it's not just the absorption of pollutants or chemical leaching. They can also act basically as these little rafts for pathogens to enter our system and increase the spread of disease. So it's kind of imagining. Did you ever watch The Magic School Bus?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I could totally picture a scene where like their little shrunk down bus is getting chased by this raft holding this nasty little microplastic that has a virus attached to it.
I don't want to go on another field trip. Oh no.
No, Miss Frizzle could get it
with the frizz. Yes, way.
All right. So, and then not to be left out, you can also get microbiome disruption. So, ingested microplastics can alter that gut microbiome composition and affect everything from your digestion to immune function and your overall health. So, if you don't have a good feel for why you should care yet, basically, microplastics bioaccumulating and getting stuck inside us are turning us into giant Legos. So, very, very different from the macroplastics that get accidentally stuck inside people who show up in the ER. Have you ever heard about this kind of? It's not really an urban legend because it actually does happen.
No, I've seen like the X-rays. I feel like a Hot Wheels car like in the anal cavity or whatever that is.
Yeah. So basically, it's not really a joke. It's super serious. But all the X-rays and imaging of people who show up to the ED or the ER who accidentally get what shaped things stuck up their butt.
It is kind of a joke though. Like if that happened to me, I wouldn't want everyone to take it so seriously. It would just make it so much worse. I would be like, everyone, it's stupid, all right? I did this, all right? just let me have it. Don't act like this is normal. I know you guys are all just like going and texting your husbands and wives behind the scenes right now, but just for once, just let me have it, all right? Just talk to me like a man. Look at me, I'm a man. I know I'm in a little hospital skirt, as they call them, and I'm on all fours, and I'm you're reaching in me to get a Hot Wheels car out, but treat me like a damn man that I am. Look at me in the eyes.
Dude, what's so wrong? Is it so wrong to be walking by your kitchen and see a small little plastic water bottle and just be curious? I think it is weirder if you lie about it, but then it's also I bet there's probably a couple times where it is truly a bizarre accident and just no one's gonna believe you.
That's the thing, dude. It's like immediately you said, I was like, really though? Like, how is it? Name one. I don't know. We could do a whole episode. We actually should do a whole episode on this. We will. Like, we're gonna get there.
But basically, you need the flared base. People, be smart. But no. So back
or a spoiler on your Hot Wheels.
So it doesn't spoil you. All right. So that's right. Shifting from macroplastics back to microplastics. Gordy, would you like to take us?
Yeah, I'll rewrite this ship. Let's reset. Let's reset for a second. We'll pause. We'll hear a word from our sponsors today. Well, you may have heard of vitamin water, but have you heard of vitamin water bottles? Introducing Microplast, the world's first vitamin-rich plastic water bottle. Why fight the inevitable microplastics when you can embrace them with nutrition? It's as simple as leaving the microplast in your car during those hot summer days. Every bottle slowly releases a blend of vitamin D, omega-3s, and antioxidants as the plastic particles break down. Because if you're going to ingest plastic, why not make it healthy? Microplast, I drink your bottle but it won't last. Sip the bottle and then I'll see microplastics become part of me. Let Microplast become a part of your routine and your body, turning your everyday plastic consumption into something you're proud of. Welcome back, everyone. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. New episodes Monday morning at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram.
All right, Gordy, we are talking about microplastics, nanoplastics. I think it's time to break down our impressions and share some asides as part of our assessment.
All right, well, Zed, you cannot talk about microplastics without mentioning the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Did you know that there's a floating island of trash in the Pacific Ocean that's way bigger than you might think? Welcome to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I'll be like, welcome to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's a colossal collection of debris that's both fascinating and also horrifying.
A floating island of trash in the Pacific Ocean. Are you talking about Australia?
Oh!
No. We love Australia, guys.
No.
That was the New Zealand in me.
Yeah, that was the Kiwi coming out. What it is, though, Zed, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a vast area of the ocean where debris, primarily plastic, accumulates due to ocean currents. What are those ocean currents doing? Are they stupid? It consists of 2 main patches. The Western Garbage Patch, located between Japan and your state, Hawaii. And the Eastern Garbage Patch, which is located between California and your state, Hawaii.
Mahalo.
Together, Obama means family. Together, they cover an area estimated to be larger than Texas.
Damn. Speaking of another, no, I won't. I'm not gonna pick Texas.
Oh yeah, that's right. So how did it get so big? Sigh. That's what she said. Microplastics, tiny bits of plastics less than 5 millimeters in size.
We get it.
Are a major contributor. They come from broken down larger plastics like bottles and bags. And so ocean currents gather these tiny particles into massive floating heaps. Studies suggest that the patch contains over 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic, with some reports estimating it could weigh around 80,000 tons. Hell yeah. Awesome. All right. So why it matters, Zed. Why it matters. Microplastics are a significant concern because they don't just sit there, they enter the marine food chain. Sea creatures ingest these tiny particles, which can then harm their health and ultimately ours.
We are the turtles.
It all comes back to that. We are the turtles. I'm just glad you said that. We're going to go back to I have something more turtley for you later.
More turtley, all right.
Even more turtlesome.
Well, I like turtles, so this is gonna be great.
All right. So what can we do? We need to reduce our plastic use, as I said up top, support cleanup initiatives. These are the key steps. Innovations in waste management and recycling are crucial to preventing further pollution. And then there's this thing right down the beach, the beach that I live on. It's called the Ocean Cleanup, and they're a really cool project. It's a nonprofit that aims to remove 90% of floating plastic from oceans by the year 2040. And they're using innovative technologies. They clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and intercept plastic in rivers to prevent further pollution. And so I have an interceptor near me, near Bayona Creek, Interceptor 007, pretty cool name. And it's cleaning up the river. It's keeping trash and junk out of the beach, out of the ocean. And their new system 03, will scale up ocean cleaning with their interceptor systems targeting the world's 1,000 most polluting rivers. And since 2018, they've removed well over 84,000 kilograms of plastic.
Yeah, you sent me that picture of how they work. And did you see the new Godzilla movie? Or it might not even be the new one, but the one where he's like working on the boat and they have these boats with the line in between them kind of harvesting the mines in the Pacific. Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that, these 2 big interceptor ships with this basically dragging this huge net between them, right?
Yeah, just giant like wishbone shaped kind of net and these 2 boats, and it's just huge and they're just dragging, but really cool. Cool what they're doing. Seems like they could be doing us all a big service.
I feel like that could be a good sort of educational get plastic consumption in the public zeitgeist if they do another Godzilla movie and he's kind of getting stuck in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or it's kind of mutating him or something.
I don't know.
And
That sounds like a good thing, though. That sounds like Godzilla's said. I don't know if you understand the concept of Godzilla, right? Godzilla is destroying cities, murdering tens and tens of thousands of people. Okay, if he gets stuck in the garbage patch, I don't think it's going to be like some heartwarming story of like, we got to end pollution so we can be terrorized. Just focus for a second.
I was kind of picturing him as that turtle from Finding Nemo, but I guess that's probably not accurate.
Turtle.
All right. So, all right. Last pitch. It could be called The Garbage Patch Kids and Godzilla. Versus Godzilla.
It's not a fair fight.
All right, go ahead.
You know what? I'm not going to go ahead because I would rather hear from you and hear what you found interesting and compelling.
Damn it. All right. So here are some things that I came across. Again, not comprehensive. There's so much like wild and wacky and really interesting stuff out there, but I'll go through a couple quick things that I found. So just to start off with a quick tour of impact on just a few of our physiological systems. So again, respiratory system, and these studies were in humans. So they found that inhalation of these plastics cause oxidative stress, inflammation, and damage to the airways and the lungs. And this is bad because we need to breathe. But also nano-sized plastics, the ones even smaller, they can cause mitochondrial damage in the respiratory cells, and they also increase the risk of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. So you could have ABC, PVC, COPD. You know what that stands for?
What, Zed? Did you like hit the apprehension in my voice?
Yeah, I did. Always be choking, polyvinyl chloride, congestive obstructive pulmonary disease. So yeah, that could be a thing in our lifetimes.
Cool.
If anyone asks me. Cool. But no, so that's respiratory. We also touched on the endocrine and reproductive system issue. So the plastics disrupt hormone production and metabolism. So those can lead to endocrine disorders, metabolic, developmental, reproductive issues. And we'll get into some fun reproductive issues later. And then, as we talked about, they can also carry these toxic substances. And they've been found in placentas, indicating potential risks during pregnancy. So it starts from a very early age.
Eek.
And then they've also found, so these are in animal models. So
animal models. Wooga. Hey.
So basically it's just using animals in these experiments, but they found neurotoxicity in animal models. So microplastics accumulating in the central nervous system, so spinal cord and brain, causing activation of these microglia. So these sort of immune system cells in the brain, as well as neuron damage, cognitive dysfunction, and even changes in locomotor function. So if you thought those weren't good enough, I got a nice little cardiovascular system study for you, Gordy. You ready? You buckled up?
Yay. What do we got?
All right. So this may be our most uplifting. I promise it's going to get more uplifting. All right. So microplastics and nanoplastics and atheromas and cardiovascular events. And this was in the New England Journal of Medicine, Gordy, in March of this year. And that's another good one. You got your Cell, your Nature, and your New England Journal of Medicine. Can't go wrong. All right. So I'll jump into the methods here. Basically, they conducted a prospective multi-center study, and this was an observational one involving patients who were undergoing carotid endarterectomy. So basically, that's just a surgical procedure where the surgeon goes in, they're working to reduce the risk of stroke. So they'll open up your carotid artery and they'll remove little plaques that are starting to form. And so that's all to hopefully avoid it detaching and lodging somewhere in the brain, which is a stroke, and that's not good in case it sounded good. So basically, they took these patients who were undergoing this procedure anyways for asymptomatic carotid artery disease, and they took out the carotid plaques, they took out the plaques in those arteries, and they analyzed them for the presence of microplastics. And then the primary endpoint of the study was a composite of myocardial infarction, stroke, or death from any cause among these patients who had evidence of these micro and nanoplastics in the plaque, compared with patients with the plaque that showed no evidence. So to simplify that, basically, do more bad things happen to the patients with plastic in their plaques versus non-plastic containing plaques? Plaque sticks.
Wow, that's hard. That is a tongue twister. The plastic plaques on plaque.
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah. Oh. So
right.
Also what I'm kind of gleaning from all this is that it's still it's early. Plastic hasn't been around long enough to do like a lot of comprehensive longitudinal studies, it seems like, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're doing more and more research and studies to see how exactly it impacts us as living individuals and not just at the cellular level, et cetera, or in animal models. But yeah, so as pertains to this study, the results, they found polyethylene plastic was detected in the carotid artery plaques of 58% of the patients, so 150 patients.
Whoa.
And there were 21.7 micrograms per milligram of plaque. And then 31 patients also had measurable amounts of polyvinyl chloride. So that's that PVC, if you are familiar with PVC pipe. And then let's see, and they also revealed, so they used electron microscopy basically to visualize what the plastic looked like. And so they found these, they were visible jagged edged foreign particles among the plaque macrophages, so the little immune cells that swallow bad things within the plaque. So they found plastic in those macrophages and scattered in the external debris extracellularly. So
They're corrupted. We're corrupted. There's corruption.
Corrupted everywhere. Plastic corruption everywhere. So anyways, the main conclusions were that in the study, or the main findings were that patients with carotid artery plaques in which the plastics were detected had a higher risk of that composite of myocardial infarction, so heart attack, stroke, or death from any cause at 34 months of follow-up than those in who their plaques did not have plastic. So plastic plaques bad, more death, stroke, and heart attack, and then the patients that did not have plastic in their plaques.
I don't like to hear that, Zed. Don't like to hear that.
Yeah. So keep that plastic out of the plaques and maybe try to avoid the plaques as well, because they are also not good. So, no, I just thought that was a really interesting study because it actually is showing evidence for the pathology involved directly in living humans and the endpoints, these non-desirable endpoints. But I'll cover a couple other studies which go back to a little bit of the animal models as well as the in vitro versus in vivo.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Please do.
All right, so this was just a one really quick example from, they used zebrafish. So this is impact of microplastics and nanoplastics on liver health. And this was in the World Journal of Gastroenterology. So this is just one interesting liver cell finding. They found that the micro nanoplastics actually directly disrupted energy metabolism. And so they altered mitochondrial function by the exposure to the plastics affected the mRNA, and it interferes with the mRNA that's involved in the electron transport chain. And so that interferes with ATP production. So that very most basic, important aspect of the cell and mitochondria of ATP production, these microplastics negatively affected. So again, it's zebrafish, but really fascinating that this could even happen on that scale.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So that was
no, I mean, it is fascinating. It's just not, I'm not like super stoked about it. Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll be stoked about this.
So, please.
All right. This one's called, this study was called The Potential Impact of Nano and Microplastics on Human Health, Understanding Human Health Risks. And it was in the Journal of Environmental Research. So all of this study was focusing on in vitro models. So again, in vitro means within the cell, sort of using the cell as the item you're studying, whereas in vivo is in the living model, in the human or animal,
right.
etc.
It's like come from glass, right? Like in vitro, like means like done in like a glass thing. Because I think it's related to the word glass, right?
Right. You're looking at it on the slides. You're looking at the cells on the slides.
Yeah.
Exactly. So research on human cells, so this is in human models, has revealed that these plastics can trigger various cellular responses. So we talked about some of that cytotoxicity, genotoxicity, inflammation, apoptosis. So that's the programmed cell death. So you're getting these little microplastics that are telling your cell to destroy itself. And then oxidative stress. So among the plastic polymers studied, PS, polystyrene, not postscript, is most frequently used in research. So I thought that was interesting because polystyrene doesn't even rank within the top 5 polymers produced globally.
Yeah.
So there's this huge gap.
Representative.
Yeah, exactly. Huge gap in data regarding these other plastic types. So for example,
That's
PET is the one that's used in all the clothing and containers for liquids and foods, and then PVC, which we talked about earlier. So do you know those little styrofoam coffee cups in every waiting room or area office? So those are mostly made out of polystyrene. And there was this little quote from the Society of Environmental Journalism. Certain conditions, I quote, cause polystyrene to break down chemically and possibly leach styrene. Heat and hot liquids are a problem.
Oh, good.
The one thing you use them for.
The one thing.
Yeah.
You know what, and it's just like kind of how I am. I feel like I end up like chewing up the sides of the styrofoam cup, which probably isn't great.
No.
But yeah, I'm one of those guys that I'll come on the podcast, I'll raise my hand, I'll say I am not perfect. I bleed red. It's all good. It's like I have eaten parts of a styrofoam cup probably numerous times.
It is not all good. I cannot stress it enough.
But it's all good for me right now.
But no, so I thought this was really interesting too. The last point from that study was that the plastic particle sizes, of course, range from nano through micro, but the different surface modifications, so the different surface features or kind of topography of those particles, can have crucial impacts on the cytotoxic and inflammation effects. So it's not even just the chemical components, but also literally the physical properties or the physical sort of structure, which can impact its pathology, which is wild.
Super interesting. It's gonna be fun to just follow that helplessly throughout my life.
Helpless for now, but no, we have some ways for us to help ourselves.
I'm gonna put tiny little boats inside of me and just tow out all the plastics.
Get that Godzilla out of you.
Yeah.
But no, so all right, so that's that study. And then last couple here. So this one's called Microplastic Presence in Dog and Human Testes and its potential association with sperm count and weight of testes and epididymis. Did I do that?
That dude. How many podcasts this week made an epididymis joke?
Ooh.
Being zero. And there's a lot of podcasts. We know that. Trust us, we know
podcasts.
that.
I would say probably, I would set the under over at 1.
All right. I would take that bet.
All right. So I couldn't access the whole article here. So I just had access to the abstract. So it's unclear why they looked at both man testes and man's best friend testes. It's just what they had in the freezer or something. But basically, their objective was to quantify and characterize the prevalence and composition of microplastics within both canine and human testes. So the study, so I won't get into too much, and again, just working off the abstract here, but the study revealed the presence of microplastics in all of the dogs and all of the human testes with significant inter-individual variability, so different levels between different people and different dogs, presumably. And interestingly, the mean total microplastic levels were 122 micrograms per gram in the dogs, but they were 328, so almost 2.5 times as much in humans. So yeah, I don't have a good feel for why that might be. Maybe it's just bioaccumulation. We're living longer, so we have time to gather more plastic in our testes. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any guesses?
So we have more than they do?
Yeah, we have a higher density of microplastics in ours.
I mean, it'd probably just be, don't you think it's just because dogs don't wear clothes? They eat out of metal bowls a lot.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot more just direct contact with that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they might be a little bit closer to the ground, like going for a walk. They might be breathing in some tire dust or something. But and they're also just like, I would wonder if they would, they should have, I don't know, wouldn't it almost make sense to measure the dog and the man of the same age, so like it has the same amount of time to accumulate in you?
You would think so. These are all great questions for the researchers. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure how they tried to restrict or manage those variables. But
it's interesting though.
Yeah.
But that's either way super interesting. Doesn't sound great though, is what I'm hearing.
my dog just shaking his head at me while I'm chewing on his plastic squeaky toy. Like, bro, you cannot be doing that. This is why.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
But anyway, so they found that both humans and the dogs, of course, exhibited relatively similar proportions of the different polymer types. So your polyethylene being most dominant, and they kind of ruled, or they didn't kind of rule. They stated that these findings highlight the pervasive presence of microplastics in the male reproductive system in both human and canine testes, with potential consequences on male fertility. So yeah, if you're trying to get pregnant, don't wear tight underwear, don't go in the hot tub, and don't have plastic nuts. That would be my 3 pieces of advice.
That's very, very good advice, Ed. Thank you for that. I'm terrified. But Zed, here's the kicker. All right, the UN Environmental Program says that that research has found that there are as many as 51 trillion microplastic particles in our oceans, which is 500 times more than the stars in our galaxy, which is a lot. It doesn't really, we don't like see all the stars. It's a hard thing to really conceptualize, but like, it just seems like we need to have fewer stars in our galaxy if this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, let's go to the source. The source of the analogy.
So what are we supposed to do? Am I just supposed to be content with my body being ravished by plastic like a real housewife? Here are some tips, some things that we can do to help. This is from a New York Times article titled "Microplastics Are Everywhere. Here's How to Avoid Eating Them. You'll never guess what it's about." Updated June of this year, written by Katie Akamoto. But the first thing, generally just being healthy is the first thing they recommend, like getting your sleep, exercise, eating a balanced diet. I think it kind of goes in what you're saying in that study too, like avoid the plaque if you can. You know, you can kind of do a few other things to try to make yourself a healthier human. So at least you're set up to house all the plastic better. The second thing would be reducing exposure. And I'm going to go over some ways that we can reduce our exposure to microplastics. So number one, cut back on bottled water. Studies suggest bottled water may have more microplastics than tap water, which isn't super surprising to me. But like even tap water and stuff, I was reading over in LA, like the reservoirs have these giant inflatable balls on top to to slow down evaporation, but they're made out of plastic and rubber, so those are like dripping into
sitting in the sun all day.
exactly
Nice.
that. Another thing, carry a reusable steel or glass bottle and avoid bottled water when possible. Number two, use NSF certified water filters. That is the National Sanitation Foundation, in case you're not really deep in this. And so those kind of filters, and ANSI certified, the American National Standards Institute certified filters, can reduce the microplastic intake. Avoid running hot water through the plastic filters to minimize plastic degradation. Number three, avoid plastic food storage. Zed, plastic containers degrade over time, especially with heat, acids, and sunlight. So I'll need a new Ziploc for my sulfuric acid that I like to carry around. So yeah, use
solve a couple
alternatives.
issues.
yeah, might be good. Might be good for my plane travel. Use alternatives like glass or ceramic for storage. What do you think of that? Do you think that's good? A good way of avoiding plastic food storage?
I do, and it's actually fairly simple to implement. Like I know it's easy to be overwhelmed, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But no, these are pretty actionable, simple swaps. It just takes a little bit less, a little switch from the regular convenience we're used to.
Number four, Zed, don't reuse single-use plastics for food. So when you think you might be being good and helping out, I guess they're not really made for that anymore. Avoid reusing takeout containers, drink bottles, or breast milk bags for food storage. So just try and take my breast milk bags from me. Zed, I will not be putting my breast milk in a paper box, no matter what.
What about a glass jar?
Sure, that's fine.
Right.
Number five, avoid microwaving in plastic. So even microwave-safe plastic can release microplastics. That is stupid as hell. Does that just mean it's not going to hurt them? It's like safe for the microwave? Like you might
Must be.
like I don't know. Use glass or ceramic instead. Trust no one. Number six, wash plastic by hand. This one is really fun. Dishwasher temperatures degrade plastic, so get those hands out and start washing.
That's a good incentive though to get the glass or other material so you can whack it in the dishwasher and avoid the worst thing in the world, hand washing dishes.
That is true, actually. Yeah, I think a lot of this can be like a couple purchases of just like updating your inventory, and then it'll be pretty like good going forward. Number seven, use wood or bamboo cutting boards. Plastic cutting boards can release microplastics into food. Wooden boards are made of wood, and they don't do that.
But they do release. Do they release micro wood particles into your food?
Honestly, probably.
That's fiber, baby.
yeah, exactly. That's fiber. That's roughage. Number eight, clean your air. If you're not cleaning your air, then what are you doing? You could be cleaning your air right now while you're listening to this. Microplastics can be found in dust. So regular vacuuming, mopping, and using air purifiers can reduce exposure. Instead, also some special consideration for children and infants. Higher exposure in infants. Their babies are exposed to a ton of microplastics, especially through plastic bottles. So avoid microwaving plastic bottles. Consider using glass or silicone bottles. And rinse sterilized plastic bottles. So you heat sterilized bottles before use can reduce the microplastic exposure. I thought that was interesting. And then how concerned should you be? And this isn't in the article, but I'm just going to say a 7. And that's just my vibe.
Is that a 7 out of 7? Or what's that out of?
I feel like a 7 of this, like, just not even on a scale. Just I would say
7 vibes.
Yeah, just kind of like vibes.
Gotcha.
So cool. But before we wrap up, Dr. Zed, what are the GTH big 3 bangers of microplastics?
Oh, the irony of having big 3 bangers of such a small thing. All right. So here are the big 3 bangers. So it's number 1, it's about the motion of the ocean and the size of the plastic boat. So micro nanoplastics are, as we know now, ubiquitous. They're pervasive from our natural environment, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the ocean water we swallow, the clothes we wear. So it's everywhere, and because it's everywhere, that means these tiny little pieces of shit, they can easily enter the human body through both passive and active consumption. So they also bioaccumulate over time. So it keeps getting better. And this leads into the second point. It's not fantastic. I'm made of plastic. I'm trying to think of any other lyrics. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie. It's not fantastic. I mean, you could brush my hair. Yeah.
Brush my hair. Undress me everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll skip the last one. All right. So they've been found in nearly every human tissue, as we've covered, and can cause physical harm when ingested, from everything from inflammation, cellular damage, carrying toxic chemicals, viruses, etc. So long-term exposure and accumulation can potentially lead to more severe health issues, like we talked about with those plaques. And then I think it's important to mention that there's still a lot of ongoing research to fully understand these impacts. There's really a ton of uncertainty regarding the full extent of these health risks. And then although initial studies have been shown these microplastics to be very caustic and pathologic in animal models and in vitro studies, basically more research is needed to better understand variables like the concentration of these things, the duration of exposure, and then as well as the mechanisms through which these micro and nanoplastics affect human health. All right, so whether you want to categorize those things as bummers, that's fine. But number 3, I just want to say, don't get sad, but also don't get glad. So that will hit for all the
I like
people that remember the glad bags.
Oh, I remember those.
But basically, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, negative, sort of depressively paralyzed. But there are, like Gordy covered, there are fairly simple, if not always super convenient, actionable steps you can take and swaps you can make. So really appreciate you covering all those, because it really doesn't take that many little simple switches to super improve your exposure. And again, this all comes down to consumer choices. So reducing those use of single-use plastics, opting for products that aren't, I mean, I know how hard it is. Like, I was in the grocery store the other day trying to buy something and couldn't find a version of it that didn't come in a plastic case. So again, you just do the best you can with what you have, but try to support those brands that are committed to sustainable practices and help decrease that overall production and release of those microplastics. So basically, rule of thumb is, what are you putting in and on your body, whether that's food, water, in your air, clothing, and try to do the best you can with those sources. And then Gordy touched on advocacy and awareness, and I just wanted to quickly run through a couple additional resources. So if you're looking for more information or more helpful tips and whatnot on swaps, et cetera, so there's this website, this group called Plastic Pollution Coalition.org.
Pollution Coalition.
Coalition.org. And so they have a ton of materials and reference articles, actionable steps, et cetera. There's Environmental Working Group. So they give consumer guides on reducing plastic use and safer alternatives. And then there's a ton, if you just search on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, you can find a ton of different social accounts and blogs around zero plastic or zero waste communities, reducing exposure, et cetera. And then I think you had mentioned the United Nations Environment Program, Gordy.
Yeah.
They also have a ton of resources, and they have reports that include sections on microplastics. And then World Health Organization has published reviews and reports on these things as well. So just a couple additional resources to get people started.
Now that's healthy.
Thank you, Zed. Those microplastics sound very healthy. Thank you so much for telling us about those. But Zed, now it's time to transition to a new segment that isn't new, but it's new because we haven't done it yet today. So in a way, it's new. But we are going to a historical perspective. Hey, see, it's a going through health historical perspective right here. In the mid-19th century, billiards was all the rage. I've noted this, that I think billiards comes up in every single one of these historical perspectives. That's just all they did back then. In the mid-19th century, billiards was all the rage. That's what all the people were doing on TikTok back then, especially among the upper class. But Zed, there was just one problem. Billiard balls were made from ivory, specifically the tusks of elephants. and Zed, there were not a lot of wild elephants in the US&A. Back then or now. And as the popularity of the game grew, so did the demand for ivory, threatening the elephant population. And desperate to find a solution, a New York firm offered $10,000, a very impressive fortune at the time, which is well over $200,000 today, to anyone who could come up with a substitute for ivory.
I bet Harvard researchers probably didn't even care because they already had their tower. They're like, we're good. Why bother?
Exactly, their ivory tower. They wouldn't want to make that into anything else. So, looking for a substitute for ivory, this is where John Wesley Hyatt enters the story. Greetings, I'm John Wesley Hyatt. Everyone is named John Wesley Hyatt in the 1860s. Hyatt, a curious inventor with a knack for chemistry, accepted the challenge. Put me in, coach. Though he didn't immediately create a perfect ivory substitute for billiards balls, his work led to something far more revolutionary. Hyatt's quest begins with a mix of shellac, resin from lac bugs, and pressed wood pulp. But then he progressed to discovering nitrocellulose, a compound so flammable it's used in explosives. So he's off to a very good start, right? So what are we making again here?
He's looking for that defense contract.
Oh, yes, exactly. And then he founded Raytheon. Now, he and his brother, Isaiah Smith Hyatt, decided to push forward, mixing nitrocellulose with camphor, a compound from camphor laurel trees, which helps make this mix moldable. Now, Teddy Roosevelt. That gooey concoction led to the creation of celluloid, the first successful synthetic plastic. Yay! I know you really just. I don't let you know you really undercut my story today. And it's gonna. It really takes a little of the shine off, but it's fine. Hyatt's original goal was to create a billiard ball to behave just like ivory. Oh, behave! But early celluloid balls had a problem. Legend has it that they were slightly explosive. These stories, whether slightly exaggerated or not, will be used on this podcast. Whether slightly exaggerated or not, became something of a legend in billiards halls. One player recalled that when the ball would explode, no one was hurt, but the surprise was enough to stop play, and players would sit there in stunned silence. I just love it. I love that idea. Just like someone hits, it's like poof, and then everyone's just gone.
Everyone drops it. See, I wouldn't have guessed that it was going to be stunned silence. I would have guessed they're in this skeezy Western bar and they all have their 6-shooters and when the balls pops off and then a nervous gunslinger just starts mowing down. I don't know. It sounds like a dangerous game. Maybe the most dangerous game.
Oh,
billiards.
Man. Sorry. Billiards. Yes. Well, fun fact for you is that early plastic products made from celluloid had a distinct smell, especially when they heated up. Because it's good to heat up plastic-like products. The camphor used in celluloid manufacturing emitted a strong odor that some people found downright unpleasant. Those are some strong words.
Do you think that's where the expression "smells like balls" comes from?
I think that's exactly where it comes from. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're onto something.
The etiology.
While the flaws of being stinky and allegedly explosive didn't make for the perfect billiard ball, it led to something even bigger. Hyatt's discovery meant that humans no longer had to rely on scarce natural resources like ivory, horn, or tortoise shell to produce everyday items. Plastics were born, and the world was about to change, listeners. Hyatt's celluloid wasn't just a stand-in for ivory. It became a replacement for a whole range of natural materials. People soon realized that they could use celluloid for combs, buttons, and even dentures. People just chewing and blowing their teeth out every second, exploding.
and it all smells a little bit.
It stinks. Downright unpleasant.
Nice. Yeah, bring back the ivory.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Advertisers said of the time even marketed celluloid as the savior of the elephant and the tortoise, as it provided an alternative to the products that were so in demand. Hey, there's our turtle reference, folks.
Could not be more different. Tortoises and turtles are not the same.
Well, we'll talk about this after the recording. This was kind of odd. So John Wesley Hyatt also invented plastic detachable shirt collars that could be rinsed instead of laundered. So you could rinse them clean. And the early ads boasted about its versatility with a certain enthusiasm of the era. Said that, not proud of, but one particularly memorable ad promised celluloid collars and cuffs would drive Chinese laundrymen out of business. It's like, cool. Yikes. All right. Well, those are the times. All right. Yes, Zed. Jesus. Plastic was cocky, crass, and the bad boy rookie of the material world. Celluloid's wild ride didn't stop there. All right. In fact, its most famous role was in the burgeoning film industry. The clear, flexible, and durable nature of celluloid made it perfect for motion picture film, leading to the dawn of cinema as we know it. That's right. Hyatt's invention wasn't just another plastic. Zed, you reductive fool. It was the medium that spooled through cameras and projectors, creating the magic of movies.
Hey, Hollywood, more like Holly Plastic.
No. We would have been safer if it was Hollywood.
But that reminds me of the movie, the Quentin Tarantino movie, Inglourious Bastards, where they like pile up all that old film behind the screen.
Oh yeah,
I bet that's that explosive celluloid or whatever they use it to light it up.
Yeah, light it up. The development of plastic, Zed. This is where the good parts get. And this is where you really just took the
wind out of it.
Yeah, you took the wind out of my sails. The development of plastic gave humans the power to transcend the limitations of natural resources. Suddenly, we weren't limited to what the earth could give us. We could make our own materials. It's as if humanity unlocked the cheat code for mass production, the power of the sun in our hands.
something. What's that guy who was trying to fly and touch the sun?
It's a Spider-Man quote, but you're talking about Daedalus' son, Icarus.
No, Bezos. I think.
Bezos. Oh, yes, that's the
one. No, Icarus. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Though John Wesley Hyatt may have started out trying to save elephants from the ivory trade. No, he was trying to make 10,000 bucks. His discovery had much broader implications. Plastics, starting with celluloid, would go on to revolutionize every aspect of life, from medical equipment to kitchenware, and yes, even, and by far most importantly, billiards. Though the invention had its quirks, exploding billiard balls and smelly hair combs, Hyatt's work was a monumental achievement. Despite its eventual replacement by safer and more durable materials, celluloid's legacy lives on in one charming way: ping pong balls. If you've ever enjoyed a game of table tennis, perhaps with a friend or relative, Zed, then you've experienced the enduring legacy of Hyatt's invention. I hope that you share that next time you enjoy a game of table tennis. I hope we all do. Said, today we live in a world saturated with plastics. Woo-hoo! And we might complain, like little tortoise rights activists, about our bodies and environment being absolutely lousy with microplastics. But imagine a world without Hyatt's discovery. No cell phones, no laptops, no vape pens. Next time you see a ping pong ball or an old movie, remember, you're looking at a piece of history created by a man who saw a chance to innovate, and in doing so, transformed not just billiards, but the entire world, but especially billiards. So here's to the savior of the elephants and the tortoise, John Wesley Hyatt.
Yay. John Wesley Hyatt, you fucked us all.
There's a fun fact, though, Zed. Fun fact. No elephant or turtle has died since.
Okay. All right. I wasn't familiar with your game, John Wesley.
Oh, no.
Nice.
Oh, well, Zed, did you hear that music? You know what that music means, my friends. It is
Whoa.
time. Oh, sorry. I'm seeing double. It is time for our fast fire questions.
Gordy and Zed's Fast Fire Questions.
That is right. Zed, as always, we like to start off with our first question, which is, would you rather?
Would you rather?
Zed, would you rather never go on an airplane again or never be able to wear socks again?
Oh, damn! I'll never be able to wear socks on a plane again in this circumstance. And that's one of the most important times for socks in my life.
That's true. That's a good point.
Well, considering that I'm on Hawaii, I guess we both doxed ourselves in this episode, but I would have to go no socks ever again because I would like to be able to see my family and go elsewhere. And I'm wearing flip flops, or as they call them, slippers. I'm wearing those all the time here anyway. So socks are a thing of the past. I don't even open my sock drawer except for my underwear.
You would really need to commit to Hawaii before you make the decision, though, either way, I feel like. Because if you're not going to be able to get out of there, like, it's going to be a long swim if you end up sticking with your socks.
No. I'm forsaken socks. I'm a planes guy. Boeing.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a Boeing man.
Good. That makes sense. That's just responsible. You're a Boeing man.
What about you?
I would do. No socks is fine by me. Later socks.
Yeah, socks suck.
Socks suck. All right, Zed, it is time for the next question, which is...
Which would you rather spend time with in a giant terrarium?
That's right, Zed, it is.
I love this
Which
one.
would you rather spend time with in a giant terrarium? All right, here's the deal. You got 24 hours. You are in a terrarium that is has the base the size of a basketball court, and they're like 30-foot tall glass walls. There's like some human enrichment toys, like little trees and perches and like little things like that in there. So it's like a giant terrarium because that's exactly what it is. So Zed, you're in there for 24 hours. Would you rather be in there with a 5-year-old with rabies who wants to bite you, or the oldest living human, Tomiko Ituka, with an old-timey revolver that she keeps in, like one of those little gun that you keep in your purse with 6 bullets, and she has a desire to shoot you. So you got a 5-year-old with rabies who wants to bite you, or like a 120-year-old with a gun and 6 shots. Which one do you want?
6 shots tops. Me just Googling top speed of a 5-year-old real fast. I think I go 5-year-old because, I don't know, Tomiko Ituka didn't last this long without some survival skills, and I don't. That's not how I want to die. I would rather die from rabies in a terrarium.
Dude, no, that's exactly how we all want to go. I mean,
dying could be better.
Dying of rabies in a giant terrarium. Oh, sounds
annoying
perfect.
5-year-old.
Oh God.
No, I would go 5-year-old with rabies because I feel like I could. I had a lot of fights with my brother growing up when he was 5, so practice, and he was a biter as well. So I feel fairly well equipped, and I don't know. I feel like I could manage better in terms of jockeying and dodging, and I'm not going to talk about beating up a 5-year-old.
Yeah, no,
that's easily.
I know, and like I could definitely beat up the other one too. But the point is, that's not the point. It's not the point. All right, I accept your answer, and I will say that is correct.
Perfect.
But I would take the other one.
Just for fun.
Yeah, I just would. I just really would. But Zed, it is time. You ready to get an STD? And by STD, I mean shock the dog.
Shock the dog.
Zed, I got a good one for you today. I have the breath-holding record for mammals. And this record goes to the Cuvier's beaked whale, a medium-sized whale that is known for its long, deep dives. And it was through using a satellite tag that researchers discovered this beaked whale's amazing breath-holding capabilities. Off the coast of California, 8 Cuvier's beaked, so they have like a dolphin's nose, whales were tagged. And during the study, the longest dive recorded was 138 minutes. And this was also the deepest dive recorded. The whale dove more than 9,800 feet. So So animals that hold their breath underwater, like mammals like this, they still need to use oxygen during that time. So how do they do it? Allow me to share the big 5 factors, and also the same 5 things I looked for in a wife. Number 1, oxygen storage. Number 2, slow heart rate. Number 3, blood flow reduction. Number 4, streamlined body shape. Number 5, rib cage structure.
Yep, that's the 5 big ones.
The 5 big ones right there. They have a ton of hemoglobin and myoglobin, lots of oxygen they can store in their bodies and in their muscles. They can slow their heart rate. They can kind of limit blood flow to certain areas to preserve their oxygen. Obviously, and they have a streamlined torpedo-like shape. There you go, Zed. That's your shape. That's your BRI, a torpedo.
Medium whale.
And
whale shape.
Their rib cages can partially collapse under pressure, allowing it to flex backwards without crushing. I don't know how that helps them hold their breath, but that sounds painful.
Huh. That is. I'm just trying to picture, or trying to reason through why the partially collapsing the rib cage would be beneficial, allowing to flex backwards without crushing. I suppose it's just to facilitate the deeper dives.
I was thinking, or a deeper inhalation. Could they put in more? Can they get in more oxygen? But that doesn't really have to do with it. I don't know. I guess we have to ask the whale. Thank you, Zed.
Or your wife.
Yes. What? Did you call her a whale?
No. You said that you look for these things.
Everybody, thanks for listening to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Listen each week on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. New episodes available early Monday morning. Zed, I know you weren't doing that. I'm not going to make you feel bad about that. I'm just kidding with you. Follow us on Spotify. Zed, do you follow us on Spotify?
Yeah,
I want more followers on Spotify. That's something I check every night, and and every morning, and then at lunch, and then at 4:00.
Can we all just be nice to Gordy, everyone? I insulted his wife, and I think it's the least we can do to follow him where you get your podcasts.
Thank you. And that's at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram. Give us a follow. Any questions, throw us an email at gordyandzed@gmail.com, and we will answer them, or at least try. Send us an interesting article. We like all that stuff. Right?
Yep.
All right. Sorry. I don't know. Maybe I like that stuff. I'll give my personal email.
I love it. Sorry, I was just thinking of an apology, but yeah, I'll say it after that.
It's too late to apologize. Thanks everyone for listening. See you next time. Zed, go through health, or go to health. Go through health.
I'll see you in health.
I'll see you there, brother.
Bye. Hey, this is Zed. This podcast is intended solely for general informational purposes and does not represent the provision of medical advice or the practice of any professional healthcare services. No clinician-patient relationship is formed. Nice try. And the use of the information provided or materials linked is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not meant to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should seek medical advice for any health issues they may have and should consult their healthcare providers for any such concerns.